Hola, ¿cómo están, damas y caballeros, niños y niñas? Bienvenidos a este live que les está avisando a todos que ando por acá. Ayer les avisé que iba a estar hoy a las 5 de la tarde en punto, son las 5:01, pues conversando con el doctor Joe Dispenza. Hace poco yo estuve en un retreat de él que hace en diferentes partes del mundo y estuve en Cancún pues aprendiendo parte de sus enseñanzas y la verdad que fue una experiencia realmente transformadora. Y bueno, en conversaciones con su equipo pudimos agendar este encuentro porque es tan interesante el trabajo que hace el doctor Joe Dispenza. Y, o sea, créanme que yo salí de ese retreat queriendo que todo el mundo sepa todo lo que él ha investigado y todo lo que él ha creado para que cada uno de nosotros pueda transformar su vida y crear su futuro. Salí de ahí, pero, o sea, ¿cómo hago yo? Y gracias al equipo pudimos entonces tener este live. Yo voy a invitar al doctor Joe Dispenza. Bienvenidos a todos los que se van sumando. Sé que muchos lo conocen y sé que otros no. Que me he dado cuenta que después que yo me fui del retreat he empezado a hablar de él y hay gente que sí, que no, y yo no puedo creer que no sepan quién es Joe Dispenza y lo que hacen, y por eso es esta conversación. Así que aquellos que conocen al doctor Joe, sepan que voy a hacer en algunas cosas un poco básicas que ustedes ya saben, pero hay que empezar desde el principio, mi gente, y si queremos que más y más gente sepa sobre este trabajo y pueda tener una mejor vida, aquí estoy invitándolo, pues hay que empezar desde el principio. Vamos a ver. Invitación, la conversación va a ser en inglés, voy a hacer lo mejor que pueda. Por ahí anda Gaby, un beso Gaby. Gaby que fue mi acompañante en el retiro y que fue una guía porque ha ido como 4 veces. Hi, Dr. Joe, how
Hi,
are you?
Erica. Very
Oh,
good.
this is so exciting. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be with you.
Yeah, it's an honor. You know, I've been following your work for years, and I was lucky enough to go to a retreat a few weeks ago in Cancun, and I can describe it as a life-changing experience. I know, Dr. Joe, that everybody said the same, but I have to say it truly. So when I finished the retreat, I felt the need to spread your message and your insights to my community, that it's a Latin community and they are willing to change and transform their futures and transform themselves. And I wanted to share your knowledge, Dr. Joe. So I guess we should start from the beginning. Like, who is Dr. Joe Dispenza and how do you teach people to transform their lives?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I've been doing this probably since the turn of the century since the year 2000.
Mhm.
It's been a long journey
A
for
long
me.
time.
Yes. And, I believe that, my interest is to teach people the biology, the neuroscience of how to change and how to transform their lives. And one of the most effective ways we do that is we give people information. I think knowledge and information is the forerunner to producing an experience, right? So the more people can understand what they're doing and why they're doing, what they're doing, the how gets easier. So we run these large scale events, just like you went to in Cancun, where we bring thousands of people together from all over the world, and it's a very immersive experience. They have to retreat from their lives, and if they truly want to change, we've come up with a simple formula that teach people the tools for them to begin to make those changes in their life.
And I know that you had an accident years ago, and that changed everything for you, Dr. Joe. So, do you think you've been doing this work if that accident never happened?
Oh, for sure, I'd be doing something else. I mean that was my wake up call. It sparked a lot of curiosity for me, Erica, because after I had my own personal change and my own personal healing, I started studying spontaneous remissions from diseases, and I wanted to see if other people had healed from other conditions. And then I was able to figure out what the commonalities that they had, and then I started seeing if we could work on healthy people or other people. And so I would never be doing what I'm doing today if I didn't have that moment.
Talking about wake up calls, you know that one of the first things that really hit me when I started the retreat was realizing how much of my mind was still living in the past. I mean, you say it all the time that most of us are thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, and making the same choices every day. So at the end, we are creating the future that looks like our past. So that was overwhelming experience for me because I felt that I was kidnapped by my mind, no? So my question is, Dr. Joe, if most people are living a predictable future based on familiar past, how do we break the loop?
Yeah, so you learned at your retreat that 95% of who we are by the time we're in the middle of our lives is a set of hardwired attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions, automatic habits and behaviors, and unconscious emotional responses. 95% of who we are by the time we're in the middle of our life has been programmed subconsciously. So it makes sense then if you're wanting to create something new in your life, and it all starts with the thought, then you got to start paying attention to how you're thinking. You got to become conscious of your unconscious habits and behaviors. And then you have to become aware of the emotions that you feel on a regular basis. And that process of unlearning is actually the process of change. And most people don't like to light a match in a dark place because it's uncomfortable. And when you're at a 7-day retreat and you have thousands of people together and everybody's doing it, you come up against yourself, you come up against those thoughts. And the idea is to become so conscious of those unconscious thoughts that you don't go unconscious to them in your waking day. What are those thoughts? I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, I'll never get what I want, it's somebody else's fault, something's wrong with me. People think these thoughts all the time and they go by their awareness unnoticed by them. So the first step is becoming conscious, and so conscious that you're aware of that thought and it no longer has power over you. By the same means, if you want to be happy, but you're acting and behaving because you're complaining and blaming and making excuses, that's not what a happy person does. That's what an unhappy person does. So if you truly wanted to become happy, you would have to stop behaving that way. And then last step is the emotions that we feel on a regular basis. They become so familiar to us that we don't even know that we feel that way. So then if you wanted to create something new in your life, if emotions are a record of the past, you can't feel those emotions any longer because that keeps you in the past. You have to learn how to create more elevated emotions. And so the unlearning process and the relearning process, stop thinking one way, start thinking another way. Stop feeling one way, start feeling another way. Stop acting one way, start acting another way. That process of change usually takes place in the first couple days of our retreat. And people start breaking through and they start overcoming that 95%. And now they have the ability to begin to see a new future. They have the ability to think in different ways. And when that starts to occur, they start to change their personality. And when you change your personality, you change your life, because nothing changes in our life until we change.
Mm. It was so uncomfortable the first days, I have to say. Like I felt, Dr. Joe, that I was doing everything bad, that I wasn't feeling anything because the point is not to think, is to feel, right? So for me, I got lost the first day. I quit. I don't know what's going on. I'm not feeling comfortable. And then I started to understand it's a process. It's
Sure.
an individual process, and you start to discover it. The thing
No,
is that you have to allow it.
I tell people up front, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's like telling somebody the water's cold. And they say,
Mhm.
no, I'm okay. And I say, no, the water's really cold. And what's going on from a biological standpoint, imagine if you're catching those thoughts that normally slip by your awareness unnoticed, and you're restraining your emotional responses, and you're no longer doing the same things that you typically do, the body goes into a state of dissonance. The brain circuitry starts to prune apart. We're not making the same chemicals. We're not making the same hormones. We're not signaling the same genes. The body is in the unknown, and most people give up at that moment, and they say, I can't do this, it's too hard. But if you persevere, right on the other side of that is where people start to break through. So we challenge people because we know that nobody changes unless they're challenged. And something over a period of time begins to change in a person where they become more willful, they start believing in themselves a little bit more, their brain starts to reorganize in new ways, and they start to make their way through it. And then the second half of the retreat is all about creating the life that you want. So the question is it worth the effort? Because so many people say, well, I thought I was doing it all wrong. And I always tell them, no, you were actually doing it right. All of that's supposed to happen. There's no such thing as a bad meditation. There's just you overcoming you. So the effort to overcome yourself, right? The willingness to overcome yourself, the only way you're going to do that is by coming up against your limitations and deciding, do I want to believe this way? Do I want to feel this way any longer? Do I want to act this way any longer? That's the moment where people start to become free.
And Dr. Joe, you say often that the age of 35, and it's when we already become a set of memorized behaviors, and then it becomes harder to change. Why 35? Do you think somebody that is listening to us right now have 30 years old, it's easier for them
That's
to change than us? That we are young, but not so close to 30 years.
Well, I mean, that's just what the psychological model says. I mean, a habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times, the body knows how to do it better than the conscious mind. So whether you're thinking, I can, it's too hard, you complain, you feel certain emotions after a certain period of time, they become very hardwired and very conditioned. So somewhere in the middle of our life, that's when things tend to become more hardwired. However, the psychological model used to say that your personality is finite by the time you're 35, and you probably won't change much. And we discovered that that's not the truth at all, that people can change at any age. The concept of neuroplasticity says that we're not hardwired to be a certain way for the rest of our lives, and we're not doomed by our genes, that we're marvels of adaptability and plasticity. And so the immersive experience of a 7-day event, what makes it so great is there's constant knowledge, there's constant information, there's science, there's philosophy, there's theory, and you have to learn the information, you have to teach it back so you can get it wired in your brain. And then there's the application, right? There's the demonstration, there's the practicum of doing it. And that's, for a lot of people, that's when you have to start working on getting your behaviors to match your intentions. If you do that really well, then you start creating new experiences, and new experiences make new emotions. And if you then give people more information and they learn that information after the experience, experience is the best professor. They learn that information and then they teach it back to the person next to them, and the meditations evolve. And sooner or later, things start to get easier to do. And that's how you start changing. Because the person who heals from a health condition, or a person who changes their past, the memories of their past, or the person who creates abundance in their life, they literally become someone else. That's the key. They're no longer the same personality. They're a new personality. And that's when their life changes the most.
I heard you say that the real transformation begins when you step into the unknown. So in this space beyond the familiar. So what do you mean by the unknown, Dr. Joe?
Well, everybody's done this at least once in their life. You decide to change something about yourself. You say, I want to get in shape. I want to get a degree. I want to become richer, whatever it is that people want. You have to agree with me. The moment you decide to make some type of change and start off to create whatever you want, the moment you decide to make a different choice and do something differently, you're breaking the routine of the familiar. And that's when you kind of step into that river of change. And this is when the body, which has been so conditioned into the past, starts telling the mind, start tomorrow, it's too hard, stay on the couch, you'll do it later. Those are all the thoughts that cause people to make the same choice, to do the same thing, to create the same experience, and go back to feeling the same emotion. And many people just think that's oh, this is right for me. And yet, when you decide to truly change and you step into that river, it's unpredictable. There's uncertainty. You're leaving the familiar and the known, and many people they can't trust the unknown. So that turns out to be the perfect place to create in. And so instead of being there and not knowing what to do, if you can teach people what to do while they're in that unknown state, that's the perfect place to create something new. And when people can relax into the unknown, that's what the work is about. Because we're so programmed and hardwired biologically to have the survival systems in our body tell us the unknown is a dangerous place. So the way we do that is we get people to relax into the unknown. And when they do, they're able to create the life that they want.
Yeah, but the unknown sometimes for people is like living in the edge, in survival mode. The thing is
Yes.
to learn how to do it or how to feel comfortable in the unknown.
Yes, we work very hard on that at our events, as you know. And
Hmm.
yet, when you finally are at that place where you can actually regulate your emotional state, you
Hmm.
dial down fear and you start creating other feelings and emotions, and you practice doing that. You keep reminding yourself of certain things. You keep reviewing things over and over again. That's exactly the process of change. So we know that most people when they're in survival and stress, you run from the unknown because there's better chances of survival.
Yeah.
So, but if you reason with people though, and they start to understand that, they're just about everybody at the event finally surrenders. So it's worth the effort.
Mm. Dr. Joe, which are the three main things that get in the way to real change?
Um, yeah, it's real simple. The first one is the body. There's no doubt about it. If
Mm.
you're sitting down and you truly want to create a change in your life, if the body has been conditioned to be the mind, the servant is the master. So many people, when they want to change, they have to get beyond their habits, which is the body being subconsciously programmed, their emotions, which is the body living in the past, and their drives, right? So many people, they sit down to do their inner work, they sit down to do a meditation, all of a sudden they start getting agitated, they start getting impatient, they start getting frustrated, they want to get up and do something. That's all the
Mhm.
body, right? So
Mhm.
you have to learn how to tame the animal. You have to learn how to condition the animal to a new mind. That's the first thing, to be greater
Mhm.
than the body. The second thing is the environment. When you truly change, you have to think, act, and feel differently in the life that you're living in. And the environment is so strong because every person, every object, everything, every place that we've ever experienced in our life has a neurological network associated with it. For example, you may have a neurological network to some enemy in your life because you've had an experience or a set of experiences with them. And because you have a set of experiences with them, you view your enemy through the lens of the past. It's a memory that you have of them. By the same means, if you've experienced that person or that event with that person, there's a very strong emotion that's associated with it, right? So the
Mhm.
emotion then causes you to feel certain ways. So when you see your enemy, it's natural that your enemy causes you to feel and think in certain ways. And so the environment now is, for many people, controlling the way they feel, the way they think, and ultimately the way they behave. So to change then is to be greater than the conditions in your environment, to be greater than the circumstances in your life.
Mhm.
And then the last one is just the concept of time. So many people say, I want to change, I want to be healthier, I want to be wealthier, I want to be in love, but they never make the time to
Mm.
actually create what they want. And we teach people then that the perfect place to create in is the present moment, because the present moment is the unknown. Instead of the brain's an anticipation machine. It's
Mm.
always trying to predict the future. The brain is a memory bank of the past. It's always remembering the past. And we work with our student body to help people to labor for that sweet spot of the generous present moment. And when they can relax into the present moment, that's the unknown. And that is, as I said, the perfect place to create from. That's where all possibilities exist. So the body, the environment, and time are the three things that stand in the way for between true change. Because to change is to be greater than your body, to be greater than your environment, and to be greater than
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, overcoming yourself.
Basically, overcoming your identity, your personality. Exactly.
Yeah. And do you believe, Dr. Joe, that there's other way to truly transform if someone doesn't connect with meditation?
Yeah, listen, we all know how to do this. Everybody knows
Hmm.
how to do this. Our
That's so
brain is
important.
truly wired to be creative. And look, we've all said, what would it be like to be this person, or what would it be like to have this thing in our life?
Hmm.
But there is some commonalities that I think that demystify the process. In other words, if you said, I want to create this experience in my life, and you seem like a very ambitious and intelligent person, the first thing you would say is, okay, if I want to have this experience, I got to start thinking about all the things I have to do. I have to start thinking about all the choices I'm going to make. I have to think about all the goals that I want to accomplish, all the experiences I want. I got to think about how I'm going to feel when that goal finally arrives. And so we naturally start to remind ourselves who we do want to be. And by the same means, if you truly want to change, you start saying to yourself, okay, what thoughts do I want to make sure that are not going to control my destiny? I'll do it
Hmm.
later. I'll start tomorrow. I'm too tired. That can't stand in the way. We got to get over those. I can't make the same choices. I can't do the same things. I got to stay away from certain experiences with certain people for a while
Hmm.
until I get going here. And these emotions will always cause me to no longer believe in my future. So I think, we all do this. We do this all the time when we get possessed, in a sense, about something that we want to experience. Our mind is fixed on it, right? And
Hmm.
the excitement, the enthusiasm, the inspiration, the energy that's created from that vision is actually what drives us to move in that direction. It's just that it's so much easier to forget our vision of the future than to remember it, and it takes practice. That's all.
Yeah. So, um, how can we start? Knowing, learning the knowledge, or sitting down and meditating, or both at the same time?
Well, if you know me and you came to a week-long event, I always say knowledge is the precursor to any experience.
Hmm.
The more you learn, right? The more raw materials you have to understand the process, right? So instead of a person jumping into one of my meditations, although they can, I prefer that they understand the concepts. They understand what they're doing. They
Hmm.
understand why they're doing it. They get it wired in their brain. So when they sit down to do the meditation, they can assign meaning to the act. And when they assign meaning to what they're doing, they switch on the boss of the brain, the CEO, the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is very intentional. It wants an outcome. It wants to see the result. So if it's left to conjecture, if it's left to superstition, if you're kind of doubting, you're not sure what you're doing, you'll have less intention, less meaning behind it. So I think if you can just expose yourself to the information and it makes
Hmm.
sense to you, then when you do it, you'll get a greater benefit.
That's so important. You have a lot of retreats coming up this year. And can you explain, Dr. Joe, what happened in these retreats? 7 days, working each other on their own bodies, minds, hearts, and what changes do people experiment and why?
Well, we have great scientific data, as you probably saw when you came. We work
Mm-hmm.
with different universities actually now around the world, University of California, San Diego, Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins. We work with great researchers and scientists. And we've discovered at the end of 7 days that people have dramatic changes in just about everything that we measure. Their face is different, their voice is different, their language is different, their microbiome is different, their brain is different, their heart is different, their immune system is different, their gene expression is different. Their breast milk is different. They're completely a different person at the end of 7 days. So it's kind of, the science is kind of supporting what we've seen, which has been so exciting. And that is that when people truly change, there are dramatic changes in their health and in their life. And we've had people stand on the stage that have healed themselves of stage 4 cancer, of Parkinson's disease, of muscular dystrophy, of rare genetic disorders, of blindness. I know it's crazy. It's hard for me to believe. The deafness, of Hashimoto's syndrome, just about every condition, chronic health condition you can imagine. So we know that the immersive experience is really important for a person to truly make
Mm-hmm.
those significant changes. So the research is supporting, without a doubt, that we change. And it's not just like 10% of the population is having a 2 standard deviation change in the right parietal lobe. It's not like that. Our data suggests that 77%, 80%, 84%, 90%, 95%, 100% of the population is having those changes biologically, neurologically, hormonally, chemically, you know, in all those different systems. So it's a very strong indicator that the collective, you know, there's an emergent consciousness that's created when people come together, you know, when they come together in numbers and they begin to open their hearts and they begin to open their minds, that there's a regulation that takes place in the human nervous system. And now we're discovering that when we put heart rate monitors on people during an event, that the people who have things like depression and anxiety and cancer and PTSD, the strong of the group, the ones that are healthy, begin to entrain the people with those health conditions, and their hearts start looking like healthy people in a very short amount of time. Same thing with brains. So there's a collective consciousness that's being reflected in people's biology, which means the flock, the herd, the tribe is biologically evolving together. And the scientists call that, by the way, I'm not saying this, they call it the evolution of the species, which is a great sign.
Yeah.
The idea though, this is probably one of the hardest things for scientists and researchers to wrap their mind around. When you look at a double-blind placebo study or a triple-blind placebo study, those studies are usually 60 days to 90 days to 6 months to a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a drug study is about 25% effective. 1 out of 4 people get a good response, right? So our data is showing that 80%, 84% is basically saying that the human nervous system is manufacturing a pharmacy of chemicals that's working better than any drug, and it's happening in 7 days. And the 7-day thing tends to be the most astounding part, because you normally see these changes taking place in a drug study 60 to 90 to a year later, you know, the months or years later, and this is happening kind of in 7 days. It's really unbelievable. In fact, it's unbelievable for me to see it at times.
Dr. Joe, it's so exciting. It's amazing, your work and the science behind it. And I know you are doing this, helping hundreds of thousands of people change their life. What keeps you showing up year after year, retreat after retreat, with so much passion?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, if I wasn't seeing the results scientifically,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, we're making history just on a regular basis, just with the articles and the publications. But you know, you see someone stand on the stage and you see that their life has changed because their health has changed, or they went from bankruptcy to abundance. I do it for that. I mean, that's worth all the gold in the world to me. I think, you know, that something happens to us when we're part of human transformation, when we're a part of someone's change. There's an empathy that wakes up in us where we can feel what that other person is feeling, and I think that's the excitement about it. So for me, it's unbelievable. It's every time I see somebody heal from a chronic health condition that I didn't even think it was possible to heal from, it's changing me. It's changing my belief. And so I do that because I want to be a part of transformation. I want to be a part of a community that believes that they are greater than they think and more powerful than they know. And our data shows that. I asked the scientists, is our data greater than we think? And they always say yes. And I say that means that we're greater than we think, because we're studying our community. We're not studying Buddhist monks with 40 years of devotion, or nuns that have been in a monastery for 25 years. We're not studying, you know, that demographic. We're studying common people. And when you see common people do the uncommon, I think it blows everybody's mind. So I show up because I want to be a part of that.
Amazing, Dr. Joe. I want to be part of the community too. I'm here to spread the word and to invite people to see Source, because in that documentary that it's kind of new, because now it's free, everybody can see it in Apple TV and Prime Video. It's people can understand the science behind your work and the different experience that the people that are that went to the retreat has experience in their body and their healing process, right? And the other invitation I want to do, and I'm not getting tired of this, is to invite people to the next retreats you have. I think the next one is in DC, right? The August from the 2nd to the 8th.
Yeah, we have Spanish translation because we do have
Uh-huh.
a big Latino community
Oof.
now,
Yes.
and you know, Latinos have a great balance between their head and their hearts, and so there's been just a big momentum. So we decided to bring in our U.S. Retreats. We're doing Spanish translation in Washington D.C. August 2nd to the 8th, and but we're also doing Spanish translation in Orlando, October 26th to November 1st. And then we have Nashville, which is in September 14th to the 20th. But again, you know, the exciting part is the week long. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens, and you have the training so you can begin your life doing all this, well, practicing all what you learn in the retreat. So, let me say it in Spanish, para todos aquellos que hablan español, quieren ir a los retreats del Dr. Dispenza y quieren conocerse más y transformar sus vidas, va a haber traducción en español en Washington, D.C. del 2 al 8 de agosto y va a haber traducción en español en Orlando, que esto va a ser en octubre, del 26 de octubre al 1 de noviembre. Y Orlando todavía no están abiertas las registrations, los registros, pero se va a abrir pronto. Pero es importante que esto lo sepa porque se llena rápido. Tienen que estar despiertos. Thank you, Dr. Joe. It's an honor to be with you talking in this live, and I hope to see you soon and have more opportunities to talk about your work and all the learnings and all the new experience that are coming
Thank you.
to our life.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Adios.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.